Love is the greatest mystery in creation. That is the secret that we as Sufis hold for creation. That is why we are in the very center of creation. That is why we can never be on the fringes, never be on the outside. We are always involved because we carry this song of love, this passion that is His love for Himself, our beloved's love for Himself expressed in this extraordinary manifestation we call life, we call creation. And that is what we live. Yes, there are these energies that are coming into existence, and there is this awareness of this bigger picture that takes us out just of this vertical axis of our relationship to God into a love affair that involves everything, that involves all of us. And it is, the beauty of it is there are these two aspects of this love affair. When we are asleep, when we are in meditation, we are away from our bodies, away from our minds, away from our psyches, away from the outer world, with the essence of this love in its purest form. And like somebody was sharing yesterday, you can wake up in the morning or come out of meditation and the heart is beating. And sometimes there is this fragrance of something else that comes back. But then we are awake and we are in this world and involved with people and difficulties and everything in life, and that is also His love affair. That is also this extraordinary manifestation of His love, because what is life but the manifestation of our beloved's love? He is expressing Himself in so many ways, expressing His love in so many ways. And His love is not just something sweet, it is also something terrible. It also involves disasters and tsunamis and people suffering and people being hungry, and that is also His love. Just like on a very minor scale, when you are in love with somebody, it isn't just sweetness and bliss, it's also sorrow and difficulties and problems that come out between you both. And also desolation and hunger. That is all part of love. Love is not belong to some little nice box that we go and taste when you are feeling good. And so, to be a mystic means to be alive to the passion of the moment, and a passion that includes everything. The moment you say, I love this but I don't love that, you're not a mystic. Because you are cutting your beloved up with a knife and labeling him. And we don't know what is the most important part of life. We don't know what is the particular jewel in which the beloved is expressing himself. We don't know what is that moment in which his mystery becomes more visible than another moment. We like to think we do. It gives us a sense of security, of a sense of guidance, of knowing what we are doing, but we don't. That is one of the reasons that as a Sufi we have to be alive to every moment. There is this strange story which actually there was this man who went to interview Baisab many years ago, Miguel Serrano. It's one of the very few books that actually has a chapter on Baisab. It's out of print now. But he went to all of these yogis and saints in India, and he came to Baisab, and there's a chapter of his meeting with this Hindu Sufi saint. And it's interesting because Baisab told him this story. He told him the story of the man who spent his life searching for Buddha. This was the time of the Buddha, and this man spent his life searching for Buddha, and then one day he happened to go into a chapati shop, and while he was in a chapati shop, Buddha walked by, and he missed him. I mean, what was interesting, the subtlety is there was this, so of course Miguel Serrano just records this as a story, of all of the Sufi, all of the yogis and saints or whatever he had met in India. And of course there was a sort of double entendre in the story, because Miguel Serrano didn't know that he was in the presence of a great master, and he'd missed an opportunity. So in the great Sufi way, sort of Baisab told him the story of what was happening to him, and Miguel Serrano just wrote it down as another Sufi story. But we don't know what is the moment that is most precious. That is one of the reasons that we train to be completely always awake, always attentive. There's this saying in the Bible that the bride never knows what minute or hour the bridegroom cometh. And so the bride is always waiting. Always waiting. Because that is part of the duty of a lover, to be waiting for their beloved. Always attentive, always waiting. What is this moment? We don't know. The mind, they say, likes to give us some frame of reference, but we don't know the frame of reference. And particularly now, as I say, at this moment when many of the old ways of revelation have been closed down, and no books about the new ways of revelation have been written. That's what the first book I was given to write about this new energy was, The Signs of God. That the main theme of it is that the signs of God are changing. The old ways of revelation are being closed down. And the new signs of God, that they are different. And one of the differences is they are found much more in the marketplace, much more in the midst of life, and we don't know yet what they look like. Everything in creation is the beloved speaking to the beloved. Everything is a revelation. Everything that exists is an expression of divine purpose. But some things speak to us more directly. Some things, if you like, have our name written on them. And of course the beloved plays so many jokes with us. You must be aware of that. He is. I often think in our Christian conditioning we've kind of lost touch with the trickster of love and the trickster of the beloved. And remember, of course, he doesn't play by our rules. And he loves to make fun of us. Just like in every love affair, it is a game. And there are some special moments when he creates, or part of his creation is there to speak to us directly. It has our name written on it. Sometimes they jump out at you, those strange synchronicities. When you get a dream before something happened. When life jumps off the bookshelves into your lap. Some of those are obvious, some of those are like the beloved's calling cards, saying, wake up, I have a little hint for you, I have a little message for you. Those precious moments. And others are more subtle, others are more veiled. Others you have to be listening carefully to catch. Because the world is not, it is not something dead. It is not something static. It is incredibly dynamic, it is incredibly fluid, and it is his creation. All the time. That's why they say it is being created anew every moment, every moment. We think it is this static pattern, but it's not really. It is changing, changing, changing. And so, like any love affair, you have to be awake and attentive, and to learn to listen. And your beloved's moods today are not what they were yesterday. And if you can't bring that element of passion, of love, of attentiveness into your whole relationship with spiritual life, what is the point? It becomes just a practice you do, or a goal you create. And it is dead. And you get old, and you get disappointed. And there's nothing more distressing than somebody kind of old spiritual seeker. It's like an endlessly disappointed lover, still hoping. You see, we have again put this love affair into this inner relationship with God. This inner, intimate, yes, it has that quality. One can lie awake at night and the beloved is with you. One can be in meditation and feel this intimacy of love. It is extraordinary. Nothing else compares to it. That soft touch of a lover's wings, of a lover's lips, that moments of sweet intoxication, that light, you don't know where it comes from. That dream of this lover coming to you, taking you, embracing you. We've all felt that in different ways, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Sufis are drawn by love to God. But then the sadness is we limit it. We put it in a frame. We say, this is what I want. Rather than saying, beloved, how are you going to reveal yourself to me today? Taking it into everything, into all of creation, because everything in creation is a lover waiting for its beloved. And what is very, very interesting at this moment in time is that all of creation has been separated from its beloved for a long time. We are living coming to the end of an era of separation. This has affected us in many different ways. It has created this individual that we pride ourselves in being, this sense of separation from our parents, from our families, from each other. And it has created this very alienated culture that has become separate from everything and has become isolated and lonely. People today in our culture are lonely. I think, for example, if you had lived in an Indian family 200 years ago, loneliness wouldn't really have been an option. And I don't think even for the sadhus in the forest, loneliness was kind of particularly. And this separation of us has of course caused, it has created the individual. It has also separated us from nature, from life, from the rhythms of life. And what we have come to realize more and more in the last few years, it has separated life from God. I guess this was part of the plan. This is all part of the mystery of his revelation, but of course it was then used by the church, etc., for their own power politics, because if God is in heaven, and they're the only way to get to God in heaven, then they have the power, and we're stuck here on earth. And then earth became to do with the feminine, and of course then sinful, etc., etc., etc. And so this whole distance between heaven and earth opened up. This whole duality opened up. There is this joke, if I get it right, about these two monks copying these ancient manuscripts in the monastery and recording it. The monks, they copied it very slowly with little illustrations round about it. And one monk looks at this and he says, this passage in the monastic law, and he says, where was that copied from? And he goes to the abbot, and the abbot says, oh, it's been copied and copied and copied for so long, we've almost forgotten the original. And he says, well, where is the original? Well, it's actually right down in the vaults of the monastery, right at the back, there. It's in ancient language, been copied. This younger monk says, I want to go and look at it. So he goes right back to all of these dust-laden shelves and these stacks of manuscripts that have been written centuries and centuries ago. And he finds this book and he takes it out and he opens it and blows the dust off the pages and lays it beside this recent transcription that has been copied and copied and copied. And he looks at it very carefully. He looks at the old one and he looks at the recently copied one. He looks at it again, he looks again, he says, I think there has been a translation. In the monastic rules there, I'm looking at it very carefully, it says, I don't think it says celibate. I think it says celebrate. So you can see the problem. There was this mistranslation, and we have been suffering ever since. And what is more is we have kind of accepted it as the norm. What is really interesting is that we have only begun to realize that the world is alive when we see that it is dying. We now see ecologically that the world is dying. We have polluted it and desecrated it to such a degree the world is dying. But when I grew up, people didn't even think that the world was alive. It was something you kind of farmed and mined, and that was it. It put food on the table. Nobody thought it is a living being. Nobody thought it was alive. Now that it is dying, we think, oh, maybe it's alive, So what I'm trying to say is when you come to the end of an era of separation, which we do, we have forgotten that it wasn't always like this. We have forgotten that there was a time that the world was filled with divine presence, when everything was seen as sacred. We read about it, of course, in our New Age books, that everything is sacred. We haven't the brain cells hardly. They're such distant memories. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, maybe. It was a long time ago the priests came and cut off those sacred connections. And what that means for a lover is we have forgotten that the beloved is here. We have forgotten that everything is his love affair. In your own experience, we have these times of separation. Mystics know we have these times of separation. They can be very painful. They can last for months. Sometimes they can even last for years. This desert of separation, of longing, of separation. But of course, they are followed by a time of union, by a time of closeness, by a time of nearness, by a time of sweetness. By the beloved coming back to us, claiming us again, taking us out of this loneliness. If there was only separation, if that's all you ever knew, then you wouldn't be here. It's because you have a taste, a knowing of something else, a knowing of the beloved coming back to you, of making you alive in ways you didn't imagine you could be alive before. That is one of the mystical mysteries, is when the beloved comes to you again, he wakes you up in ways you didn't even know you could be woken up. He is a lover. He wakes you up in the most extraordinary ways. So I say, he wakes you up in places you didn't even know were asleep. And why should this just happen to us? Why can't it happen to the world? Isn't this what happens at the end of an era of separation? The beloved comes back again into his world. But he needs to be welcomed back into his world. Just because it's like you need to welcome the beloved back. What part of your longing is a call to him? Part of the business of being a lover is to wait, to welcome the beloved. That's why I always like this person who came to our group years ago, and he just said 3 things to me. He said, waiting, willing, and wanting. It's the best introduction anybody has ever given me to the Sufi path. It's a quote from Dickens, of course. Waiting, willing, and wanting. We are waiting for him. And we are willing. We are willing to participate in this whole mystery of love. And we want. My gosh, how much do we want? And we are also part of life that is waiting for him. That is why we are here. Look, when I talk about bringing energy down, I mean, it sounds very interesting, a little bit abstract, and, you know, we are these spiritual transformers of energy, etc., etc., etc. But if I talk about, like, orgasmic love affair, that is also bringing energy down, no? Isn't that also being receptive to energy? Hopefully. We are also part of life, waiting for our beloved to come back. And from what it seems, from the signs, from the hints, from the dreams, from the visions one listens to, there is the possibility that he may be coming back. There is that possibility. That is kind of the hint on the horizon. That is... I share with you a vision or dream somebody had a while ago. I woke up one night and found myself being with Llewellyn at the edge or beyond the edge of the world, watching something. I saw the world as something that was changing its form and color all the time, just like a bundle of some thin veils that the wind was playing with. It was embraced and permeated by a tender smile, such love. But this was not what we were really watching. It was just in the foreground. Our attention was focused on that undescribable power that came from behind, from an unfathomable beyond, rising, emerging, moving towards the world. It wasn't like a vision. I rather felt like just being there, a state that has been before and will be, just is. Not always conscious, just conscious at that moment, but always there. It was so still, no sound, no motion, just being there and watching. This experience was so real, so complete, there was nothing missing. And in the presence of that power, there was just nothing, nothing that matters, nothing that exists or even not exists. Being and witnessing, it seems it is all about that. Here, all work, all thinking about a certain work seems to be an illusion too. You see, there is this hint, this suggestion. I told a dream last autumn, with the same, that power coming down towards the earth, the power of our beloved, that he is going to reclaim his world for himself again. He is going to come back to his world, that the era of separation is over, and we are here to welcome him. We are here to welcome our beloved in his might, in his majesty, as well as in his beauty. And part of our work is to be here to wait and to witness what is happening. To be present here for our beloved in his intensity, in his power, in his passion for his world. Because this world, as we know, is his love affair, is his orgasmic creation. Yes, it is an ecological whole, and it is, one can go on and on like that. And yes, but we know it is something else. Because we have this passion inside of us, and this passion was given to us by God, so we could recognize part of God. So we could live that love affair that is creation. That is part of our work, friends. That is the central core of our work, just like the central core of creation is he loves them and they love him. This axis of love, the central theme of creation, and we are there. Sufis have always been there at the axis of love. Our love for God is this note of pure love that is needed to remind creation to whom it belongs. When we repeat his name, when we do the zikr, we are just bringing into consciousness what all of creation knows. Everything in creation has His name written on it. It's stamped with the name of God. Otherwise it could not come into existence. Something can only come into existence if it is written with the name of the Creator. Otherwise it remains a fantasy. It remains in the plane of the imagination. If something is written with the name of God, then in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. This is the seed behind creation. Everything in creation is stamped with the name of its Creator. And our hearts are also stamped with the name of the Creator, so we can bring that into divine consciousness. So we can be the link of love between the worlds. That is our responsibility. And part of our responsibility is to witness and wait for our beloved. To be here for Him. It's so simple to be here for Him. But to live it in a world that has forgotten it, that has denied it, that doesn't know it exists, that is what takes effort and perseverance, and I always like this English expression, bloody-mindedness. Just to do it, just to not to be caught in distractions, and there are 10 million distractions now. There used to be 10,000 distractions, now there are 10 million distractions. How many other voices are there to listen to? And to be in the midst of it, and to be involved in it all, life as it is today. And yet, to be present for something else all of the time, and to be attentive, and waiting, and watchful. And to be prepared at any moment to be completely here for Him. So that when that energy, that power, that passion comes back into the world, we are here. So we don't get frightened, we don't get anxious. That is what we are preparing for, to welcome Him back into His world. When I talk about this energy coming down, that is part of the process of Him coming back into His world. Of that divine presence becoming alive again. So creation can become alive again, so it can heal itself. I always say we can't heal the world. It has been damaged far too much. But the beloved can heal His own world. Because it is His world. He created it. He knows how to wake it up. He knows how to heal it. If it is His will. And if not, that is also His will. It is also His world. If you create something, you can destroy it. That is His freedom. And we don't know what He wants, but there are these signs. That is why I listen so carefully to people's dreams. That is why I kind of sniff the air. What are the signs? Where do they come from? What is it that we are here for? What is really important? And what is just incidental. And to be attentive to love, that matters. To be attentive with the heart as well as with the mind. To be involved in life, yes, but always to have one ear listening to something else, one eye seeing what is just at the borders of consciousness. In this vision, we are standing together at the edge of the world or beyond, watching something. And the world is a bundle of love that is changing. We forget the world is a bundle of love. We think sometimes it is some kind of political, economic mess. That is just a passing dream. If you knew how incidental that was. The world is really a bundle of love, and it is reforming itself at this time. The currents of love are changing. Yes, the geological plates are also shifting, but behind that there is a deeper mystery taking place. And it needs to be welcomed. Because, the beloved can come to you, but if you don't welcome him, he is a lover. He doesn't like to force himself, if possible. He needs to be welcomed. It doesn't need a lot of people to welcome him. This is, of course, the story in the Bible. I don't know, was it Babylon or one of those, or Sodom and Gomorrah, one of those cities that was destroyed, and the God said he was going to destroy it, and the prophet said, but do you have to destroy it? Maybe if I find 10 holy men, will you destroy it? And he says, no, I won't destroy it if you find me 10 holy men in the city. But the prophet couldn't find 10 holy men. He said, well, what about 5? God said, fine, 5, no problem. He couldn't find 5. He couldn't even find 1. God said, if you find me 1 holy man in the city, then I won't destroy the city. But he couldn't, so the city got destroyed. So it doesn't need a lot of people to welcome the beloved back into his world. Everybody else is very busy. If you look around you, you get up in the morning, they're so busy. Everybody is so busy. They're rushing around doing all sorts of terribly important, useless things. They are completely involved in themselves most of the time. But we are a lot of old mystics. We have kind of been through this cycle quite a few times by now, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here, We have been through quite a few lives. We have had quite a few love affairs, quite a few failed relationships, quite a few monastic incarnations. We've kind of done this and that and the other, and some things worked and some lives were a complete disaster. And so maybe by now we are not quite so caught up in the day-to-day affairs. Maybe we are not completely engulfed in ourselves by now. There is a little bit of ourselves that is not completely immersed in either our egos or the outer life. And we use that to remember him, to be here for his sake. So that while everybody else is very, very busy doing all sorts of very important things, being successful or failing or whatever people do in life, we are here to do something else. We are here to be a place that welcomes our beloved back into the world. Because we have been waiting for him. A lot of us have been very lonely in this life. A lot of us suffer because this world is so full of forgetfulness. It's so materialistic. When I was sent to America, I thought, gosh, why America? The most material place in the world. I never wanted to go there. A lot of us find it hard to be in such a materialistic culture. A culture so obsessed with money and possessions and power dynamics and all sorts of stuff. And we have to be present in the midst of it because that is where he needs to be welcomed. Not into the ashrams, not into the mountain monasteries, but into the midst of this corporate industrial world is where he needs to be welcomed. Into the city streets. That is where that power, that presence needs to be welcomed back into life. And as mystics, that is our duty, that is our job. To wait for our beloved, to be attentive to him. And not to dash off into the chapati shop all the time. Otherwise we might find that we miss this opportunity we have been waiting lifetimes for. We miss this moment. And then it'll be like having sex without an orgasm. It'll be like, what was the point of all of that? And if he decides not to come, well, we'll have been faithful lover. The duty of the lover is to wait for the beloved. To be there. You don't know. You don't know. Sometimes you wait for years. And years and years. This is also part of the training of the mystic. Patience. One learns to be patient. Because it is not on our time scale. It is not on our calendar. It is not when we want. It is when he wills. And this is something you learn in your own relationship with God. To be patient. Yes, you have hunger, you have longing, you want your beloved. Only he will fulfill you, only he makes you come completely alive. Only He makes that passion burn inside of you. And yet, it is when He wills, and you have to wait. And we wait for years. We wait for years. But we are trained to wait and to be attentive. This is the Sufi practice of being the cat at the mouse hole, infinitely relaxed and infinitely attentive. We are involved in our daily life, and we also are attentive, waiting for the Beloved, allowing Him to use us. And He has already begun to send His calling cards. That is what is beautiful. He has already begun to send a few messages down the telephone. He has already begun to say He might be coming. That was what was very interesting, because that's what happened in the 60s. That was what the energy of the New Age that began in the late 60s and 70s. There was this energy of love, of peace that was infused into the West particularly. It came out of nowhere. And it was like the Beloved saying, I might be coming sometime soon. Of course, everybody got very excited and moved to Glastonbury and sat around the tour and hoped that it was going to come down where it came down 5,000 years ago, and some of them are still in their caravans hoping. 30 years later, living off Social Security, but... I remember because I was at the first Glastonbury Festival. I was 18. And he was supposed to come then, because we built this pyramid, and it was the replica of the great pyramids, and we sat there, and there were just rather a lot of drugged out teenagers, and that was it. But there was this awakening in the air then, and a certain energy was given, came out of nowhere, and brought a promise. And a lot of us were actually woken up at that time. Something woke us up and said, the Beloved might be coming back again to earth. It was tremendously exciting because it creates this passion, this hope, this expectancy, and suddenly you realize what you have been missing. You realize that materialistic society isn't enough because you are given a sense of something else, of magic returning. I always like that line by Leonard Cohen, God is alive, magic is afoot. Because the world is magical, but the world has to be switched on. It needs a certain energy to wake up its magical centers, to wake up its magical powers. And that is beginning to happen a little bit. But we have to wait. We waited there since the 60s, 30, 40 years. We are still waiting. We have learned how to wait and not to give up hope. It is easy to wait and to get disappointed, and many of us spiritually get disappointed. We don't know the value of waiting, of being attentive while we wait, because it is not when we want. It is when He wills to come back to His earth. I think it is going to happen. I'm quite convinced it is going to happen, that a certain divine power that has not been seen in this world for thousands of years, many thousands of years, will come back, is coming back. I think He is going to claim this world for Himself again, to remind us all that it is His world, it belongs to Him, it does not belong to us. And it comes with love and with power. We have forgotten the power of God. We talk about the power of politicians or executives or whatever, but the power of God is completely different. I know a little bit of that power because I have seen it quite raw and naked in my sheikh. A little bit of that complete authority, before which you don't even dare to question, you don't even dare to argue, you don't even think of it. You just bow down, because it belongs to God. quite a different level of power. Like Baisab said about his sheikh. If he says something will be, it will be. It's like Tweedie used to use this expression, if instructions are given. I always like that, instructions are given. Then it is just will be. Because it is written with the pen of the Creator. His authority, again, in His world. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I often think about that line from the Lord's Prayer. In the last couple of years I have really been meditating a lot on that line. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And what it really means that because in heaven, what the Sufis call the world of divine command, there His will just is. Everything there is according to His will. That is where we are together in the night. Everything is His will. There you just bow down before God. Just like the angels, you bow down before God. There is no ego there, you see. It's a different plane of development. It's a different plane of existence. The world of divine command. Very beautiful. I call it the world of light upon light, because it is. Human beings communicate through light, through love. But on earth, where we are here, that was given to human free will, mostly. People here can do what they want to do, until now. We have forgotten that the divine will can also be here, that His will can be here on earth again. We have forgotten the power of our beloved. But what is the point of having a lover who doesn't have any power? What sort of love affair would that be? He has tremendous power, and we are here to welcome Him. We are trained to welcome Him, and our whole life is to welcome Him, is to wait for our beloved, to be ready, to be attentive, to welcome Him back into creation. So His spark comes back here again, so something comes a fire again, so something becomes alive again, because the world is dying, is dead. Parts of it already almost dead. And so all this work and practices I tried to share with you about being attentive, about being awake, about being aware that we are being used to bring an energy through, they are all just about welcoming our beloved back, not just into our personal life. Yes, of course we do that. That's our individual practice. When we say His name, we repeat His name because we want Him to be here inside of us again. When He is really present, then you don't repeat His name. You don't. When you are completely immersed in Him, you don't repeat His name, because you don't repeat the name of the person who is inside of you. You don't. When He is completely with you, you don't say anything. There is nothing to say. Like Rumi says, you write love letters to your beloved when your beloved is away, but when your beloved is with you, you don't write the love letters anymore. You don't really say anything anymore, to be truthful. But you call to Him when you miss Him, to draw Him back, to keep His attention on you. It's very selfish. You want all of your attention, all of the beloved's attention, just for you. It's like the 10,000 milkmaids, gopis, who were dancing with Krishna. Each of them thought Krishna was dancing just with them. Of course, you are lucky you don't have all of the beloved's attention on you, otherwise you'll be completely fried, but that's a whole other story. What I'm trying to say is we do that in our own inner relationship to God. And I am just trying to expand that relationship and saying we are also part of creation. Once your soul comes into the womb of your mother, you are part of creation. You are part of this love affair of creation. And your remembrance of God is life's remembrance of God. You are a part of life remembering God. You are, if you like, part of the light cell of remembrance of the world. You are not just you. This is an illusion created by the ego. There is no you, really. You realize that once you go into states of meditation and you leave the ego behind. They say in the Upanishads, the individual Atma is the universal Atma. The individual self is the universal self. It is all one. We are part of this extraordinary dance of creation. And so our practice is the practice of the world. Don't separate it. Your love affair with God is the love affair of creation with God made conscious. You are living it for the world, for all of creation, or you are all of creation living it through you. You are the world crying out to God, and many people feel that. You can feel the sorrow of the world that cries out, "Beloved, help me, I am dying, I am starving, I am desolate." And there is, of course, this tradition that He only comes when we are desperate, when we are in despair, when there is no other resource available. That happens in our own individual journey. When you get to that place of complete desolation, and there is nothing more that can help you except the Beloved, then He comes to you. Sometimes He comes to you quietly, sometimes He comes to you with violence, sometimes He comes to you with beauty. Sometimes He comes to you with a mischievous sense of humor. You thought I was gone, I was never gone. How can I be gone? And you realize He was always there. He is always part of you. Your calling to Him is His calling to Him. Your love for Him is His love for Him. And we are part of creation longing for God. We are the light cells in creation. Our love affair with God is creation's love affair with God. Don't think it is otherwise. As long as you are incarnated in this world, you are the song of the world, the real song of the world that longs for God, because that is all that is real, friends. You know that. Everything else is kind of a reflection, but that is real. That love, that longing is real. And we have been asked to live it for His sake, and also for the sake of the world, because there is no separation. Our love for God is the world's love for God. Our waiting for God is the world's waiting for God. Our prayers are the world's prayers. That is why this mystical life is so simple, so fundamental, and so important. Because we live it for the world, because other people are far too busy, or they have forgotten, or they weren't trained, or the Beloved didn't remind them to remember. But that is what we are asked to do. That is more important than anything, because that is what will welcome the Beloved back into His world. And you can do all the good works, and it still won't change things. This is actually something that Christ said with Mary and Martha, because Mary just wanted to sit at the feet of Christ in this attitude of devotion and love. And Martha said, "How can you do it? There are so many things to do." She was busy and troubled about many things. I always remember that line from the Bible. But Christ said about Mary, "She doth the one thing needful." She hath the one thing needful. That central core of devotion to God, of being here for His sake. And it is immensely practical. It is not wishful thinking, it is not self-indulgence, because it is being at the axis of love, being present there, waiting for Him to come back to His world. So we'll have a break now for a while and then have some questions.